So good morning and welcome to the 8th Annual Veterans Welcome Home Breakfast. My name is Giselle Sterling. I'm the Commissioner for the Mayor's Office of Veterans Services. And it's just an honor really to be here with you all on this holy weekend. There's so many other places that you could be pulled to. It's really an honor for you to have you here. So a little bit about why we're here today. So I am definitely the proud daughter of a Vietnam Marine, and when most people hear me talk about my service, they assume that that's why I joined the Marine Corps. But to the Marines in the room, you all know I didn't choose the Marine Corps chose me, so here I am. Honored to be in the same room with my fellow veterans, working in the capacity alongside you and for you, and honoring individuals like Howard Luckett, who you'll hear more about in a minute, that forged the way for veterans of the past, while supporting those veterans that would follow with resources and opportunities like the ones that you'll hear from our guest speaker, Chris Pratt. Today is about continuing to build the partnerships that make our community healthy, thriving, and strong, and connecting our veterans with the resources that they need. And my one hope today is that everyone in this room will leave knowing that you are an important part of that community, especially our Vietnam veterans who did not receive the welcome home that they should have deserved when they returned. So today we'll take a moment to recognize our Vietnam veterans among us with the presentation of a commemorative lapel pin. And I ask that if you are a Vietnam veteran who would like to be recognized and didn't pre-register with us, please see Jimmy Santos back there raising his hand so you can be recognized later on in the program. In the slides that were behind me a little while ago, you'll notice some information about the Medal of Liberty, which is presented to our military families of fallen service members, as well as the Korean Ambassador Peace Medal, which speaks to an upcoming ceremony recognizing our Korean War veterans who often feel like they are part of the forgotten war. So today we are here to tell you that you are not forgotten. You are the generation that inspired this moment, and every veteran and military family member are always welcome home. But moments like this don't happen without the partnerships we have in the community, so I'd like to introduce our hosts for this morning that have deep roots in the veterans community. Please help me welcome Michael Dwyer, President and CEO of Brighton Marine.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome to Brighton Marine. It's great to have everyone here. My name is Michael Dwyer. I have the honor and privilege to be the President and CEO of Brighton Marine. Been here about 8 years. It seems longer at times, but events like this is just terrific. Like Giselle, I want to thank all veterans here for their service and for attending today. I also want to say, as a civilian that had family members who served, I want to thank the families of veterans who I've met, and table number 2, that have really served alongside their loved one in the service. So it's really important. Today, before I introduce the next speaker, I really want to acknowledge several people, in addition to Mayor Walsh, who's been a friend and mentor of this organization and myself relative to housing development. I'm not sure if Ed Flynn's here today, but I was going to say something about Ed Flynn and say he's the chair of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, and he's also a member of the Housing and Community Development Committee as well. Councilor Mark Siomo, District 9, he's a member of the Housing and Community Development Committee, and he was born and raised in Allston Brighton, and he is our city councilor. He has provided Marlene, Bob, and I great support as we redevelop and refocus our mission on campus. I do have to say, and I don't generally recognize people who aren't here, but Representative Kevin Honan wanted me to just have a shout out because he's guarding the chicken bunnies next door at the St. Joseph's Academy. Again, he's been a great supporter. He's on the Housing and Development Committee under the House of Representatives, and literally he was born and raised about a half a mile from here. It was my pleasure to meet Marty Martinez today. Thank you, Marty. Chief of the Health and Human Services. My good friend and mentor, Sheila Dillon, Chief of Housing and Director of Department of Neighborhood Development. without Sheila and her department and other departments. And those resources in guidance, it isn't just about money. We could not have got over our goal of achieve funding about 2 months ago on the residents of Bright Marine, and there's some photo ops around the room and so forth. It's just terrific. I didn't see Kerry O'Brien, but I know she's intimately involved. Howard Luckett, I know he's going to be a guest speaker, served in the U.S. Army post-World War II and then enlisted in the Marine Corps during the Korean conflict. He's the honorary co-captain of the Boston Marathon Perimeter Relay Team, and that's significant because I believe this April 16th, this month, the 122nd running of the Boston Marathon, it's going to be a team of 16 active and retired veterans representing the 5 branches of the military and the 8 cities and towns that the Boston Marathon runs through. And they'll pass a baton along the race in recognition of the marathon year of service. Another person in absence, Dennis Magnasco, who's our board director, and he's a chief liaison for Senator Moulton. He couldn't be here today, but he is a participant in the relay team. So at the board meeting later this month, we're going to try to get a T-shirt from him. It is my pleasure to honor, and I'll introduce Dan Waltz, President and CEO of Boston, City of Boston Credit Union. He is a sponsor of this breakfast, and in my understanding for years past. Thank you for being here. And Carla McCarron, VP of Marketing, thank you. This would not all happen, and I'm almost done, without the Secretary of Veterans Services, Francisco Rena, giving us advice about 5 years ago. That advice was solid, but when the commission, when he moved on and Giselle came in, a U.S. Army Marine Corps veteran, we had lunch one day with Marlene down the street, and she said, we asked her, what are the gaps? What can we do? We're a nonprofit, we like a host community, we can spend some money. Well, we don't have housing for veterans. Well, why? Because they can't afford, and these veterans are probably on just transitioning and had a tough time. They couldn't get into the market real estate because landlords, for some reason, wouldn't rent to them, whether it was stigma, but primarily it was financial. It was last month's rent, moving costs. So we have an endowment fund that helped that, but that was a simple conversation over lettuce and lemon water, which usually never happens, but it's great. I do want to recognize a few people, and they're my bosses here. Bill Perry, chairman of the board and executive committee. He served as a commission officer in the U.S. Public Health Service for 7 years. This facility, this particular building, was built in 1938 as a U.S. public hospital. Bill resigned his commission to become the first executive director of the Military Health Plan, which is our first legacy mission. We call it now the Bright Marine United States Family Health Plan. Next, I'd like to introduce Colonel Dick Powers, U.S. Army retired. He's the board treasurer, member of the executive committee, and chairman of FENCOM, someone to reckon with. Colonel Cal Perry, U.S. Air Force retired, chair of the nominating committee. Corporal Tommy Lyons, U.S. Marine Corps, never retired, executive committee, and veteran service committee. My mentor, a little bit of an itch, great man. Captain Bart Monroe, U.S. Army, West Point grad, co-chair of the Real Estate Committee, and I have to say, congratulations to Marlene Calisi, who's my right-hand person, Bob Notch, our new program development officer, Diane Nealon, who I believe I saw, she's part of the Mass Military Heroes. They just moved in. We don't look at it as a tenant. She has 2 offices at a discounted rate. She's just a terrific person that actually says what she does what she says, excuse me. And Kerry Tucker, she's from our partner at the U.S. Family Health Plan. Finally, I'd like to thank Mayor Walsh for his support and encouragement throughout many years, even before he was in office, and the support from his departments, obviously the Office of Veteran Services, the Department of Neighborhood Development, and a desire to build a veteran network community. We have strengthened our partnership with the help of many people I've just mentioned with Commissioner Sterling's office over the past year, and this marks the second of 3 significant events we have focused on 2018 alone. Last weekend, we hosted a Thank a Vet outreach program, which I didn't participate, but last summer I did for the first time. Other than getting a T-shirt, you walk the neighborhoods and you shake and meet veterans. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So I do recommend that. We also, certainly the mayor's breakfast is important, and the next is we're going back to Faneuil Hall once it's renovated, and we're going to have even more robust Veterans Town Hall ceremony down there. Bright Marine's vision, really quickly, I think I'm close. We want to become the #1 destination stop for veteran services. It's just not housing. We have our Legacy Health Plan that serves over 16,000 veterans and their families across Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and southern New Hampshire. It has a satisfaction rating over 94%. Just terrific. I mentioned earlier the residents of Bright Marine, with the help of the city, Department of Neighborhood Services, and others, 102 affordable units for veteran preference are being created. You've seen some. It's the great thing. Demolition and holes in the ground are just a wonderful thing to see. And we plan to have that on about 12 months from now. We've also joined with the city and state veteran services for a virtual hub that connects veterans transitioning from military life to civilian life, that connects them beyond housing to clinical behavioral health care employment services, and we're looking for a program partner to help us push that. And just about last, our Veteran Housing Endowment Fund, thank you to the board members here. We established it 3 years. We put $200,000 in an envelope, and working with the VA Homeless and Boston Housing, we have helped some funding. We have helped with our resources to assist 260 veterans across the state find housing, and most of it's rental housing, so congratulations. And lastly, I'd like to close by mentioning that Bright Marine is featured as the preferred nonprofit of WBC Cares this month. It starts next Wednesday, and you might have to hear more of my voice. I'm sorry. So thank you for taking the time to attend breakfast for our heroes, and that's why we're here. There's no other reason why we're here is not to provide support and encouragement and have that affinity around our veterans. So thank you very much for listening to me. It's my pleasure to introduce Dan Waltz.
On behalf of the City of Boston Credit Union, our 26,000 members, our board of directors, and our employees, I would like to thank you, our veterans, for your service to the United States. Without you, we would not be here. We would not be the country we are. We would not be the city we are, the proud city of Boston, the great country of the United States. And you and your family members have sacrificed what a lot of us have not had the opportunity to do. It's an extreme honor for our credit union to host this breakfast. And according to our marketing manager, our marketing VP, Carla, we've been doing this for 8 years. So I would like to thank the mayor, the commissioner, for the opportunity to do this. And thank you to Brightman Marine for hosting this wonderful event. The other thing that I'd like to thank the mayor and the commissioner for Operation Thank-A-Vet. That has been very moving for me personally. We started participating last November, and I can attest to the fact that veterans who haven't been reached out to in years, the impact that it has to be going to their homes and just thanking them, and to make sure they're aware of the services this great city has available to them that many of them are not available of or aware of. And it's such a great outreach. So if you haven't participated, I would encourage you to do so. It's very moving. It's very much a wonderful, well-intentioned, and well-needed outreach that we make for our veterans. So again, I'm not going to be much longer, but I just wanted to say, Mayor Walsh, thank you. Commissioner Sterling, thank you. And thank you for all you do. And in closing, again, I can't stress enough to our veterans, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done for this country and for the great city of Boston. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan. So just a little bit of a background. Since 2012, we've had this breakfast in a different location every year to highlight the work that our community partners have been doing in the military and families' spaces. So we're ecstatic to have Brighton Marine be so generous in lending us the space. And of course, we couldn't have done this without the generosity of the City of Boston Credit Union for the last 8 years, who came to us and said, how can we help? And you've literally been paying for it ever since, so thank you. So I'd like to also mentioned that, well, something that we already know, Boston is steeped in military history and patriotism. Bostonians have been known for fighting for the good things that we know are right, despite how difficult that battle may be. And the leadership in those battlefields requires a certain kind of inspirational grit to make advances in the name of the greater good. I consider myself lucky to be surrounded by leaders doing great things in the veterans community. I know we haven't mentioned Bob Notch doing great things. Tom Lyons has been a great mentor. And today, we're all fortunate to be led by a mayor who supports this community, understands its complexities, and values the contributions of the veterans and our military families. So it's a pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Boston, Mayor Martin J. Walsh.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm going to talk more about the Commissioner in a second, because I'm going to talk about the different programs that we have going on in the city of Boston. And I get the benefit of having my name at the top of the list, just looking at this thing over here. But it's Commissioner Sterling and a team that do their work. And I just saw the commissioners talking in the hallway, and we don't talk every day. Quite honestly, we don't talk that often. We don't talk not because we don't like each other, we don't talk because the work's getting done. And the commissioner comes to me with some new ideas all the time, and it's always, when she does her ideas and when the office does the ideas, they're incredible. So I want to thank the staff of the Veterans Affairs Office in the city of Boston. Thank you, that's here today, led by the commissioner. I want to thank the volunteers. They have a dedicated group of volunteers that work with them in all this. So thank you, volunteers, as well, for the great work you do. Thank Dan Waltz and the City of Boston Credit Union. Dan is not really new at his job anymore, but I'll tell you, he never says no, and the credit union is always the first, again, to step up to the plate and help the city in so many different ways. And the fact that Dan talked about Operation Thank Event and what that meant to him meant the same thing to me the first time I did it. So I want to thank you, Dan, and the board for your great support here. Michael Dwyer and the board here. Michael was right. My first meeting that I came here, I was the head of the building trades at the time, and we were talking about how do we build the house, how do we build housing, and how do we move it forward. And I was fortunate enough to become the mayor of Boston while the process was going on. And Sheila came to the table, and you know, thank you for what you do here at Brighton Marine as well. Again, a lot of times under the radar. Those of you in this room that know Brighton Marine know that much of it goes under the radar, meaning that it's good, solid work. So I want to thank you and the board here for incredible work you do. Marty Martinez was mentioned earlier. Marty's our new Chief of Health and Human Services, and I don't know this to be true, but Marty probably, he has the largest cabinet in the city. He has the most departments in the city, and I'd be willing to bet that the one that he never has to talk to is Veterans Affairs, because Giselle. So I want to thank Marty as well. We're grateful that Chris is here, devoting his career to helping veterans and to get into business and other careers. Oftentimes you hear when veterans come home, it's about getting on the police, getting on the fire, getting on the EMS. And Chris is like, wait a second, there's other opportunities here for veterans. They're entrepreneurial. They're not afraid to take a risk. Veterans are not afraid to take a risk, clearly. And I think that I want to thank you for what you're doing, and thank everyone at Mass Fallen Heroes as well, and the organization for the great work. I had the honor to sit next to Howard Luckett. We didn't talk that much, but I know that when I sat next to him to his left, I was in the presence of greatness. Korean War veteran, joined during World War II, fought Korea, fought for this country. Now is still giving back after many, many years of service to the marathon military relay. Howard, thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to be with you today. And to all the veterans in the room, thank you. To all the active military in this room, thank you for your service. To the families of the military that are here with us today, thank you as well, because you have sacrificed as well. I want to thank you for all of your commitment to our country. I apologize for not having a suit on. I walked in, I'm like, oh man, I knew when I got in the car today, I didn't think until I got over, I'm like, I should have a suit on today. So my justification is when I'm done here today, I have to go to an Easter egg hunt in Roxbury. So, but thank you. We're joined now by City Councilor Ed Flynn, who himself is a veteran. Eddie, you were meant shout out earlier today, but thank you, Ed, for being here with us today as well. And lastly, just in the opening remarks, I want to welcome home all of the military service men and women that are here today with us today. Thank you. And those of us that didn't make it home, let's remember them as well and thank them for their service. And for the people that came home in the past breakfast, I want to thank you as well. As mayor of Boston or as an elected official, I am not a military person. I have a great uncle that fought in World War I. After Operation Thank a Vet, I knew that we had family that was in the military. So I said to myself, I was kind of embarrassed that I never really took the time to try and find out exactly on our side of the aisle what happened. I have a great uncle, his name is James Curry. He came from Kaina Islands. He came to America. He was here for 8 months. He joined the Army. He was killed in France. He was gassed in France. I was able to reach out and get a copy of his enlistment card, and I was also able to get a copy of a letter that they sent to his family when he was killed in action. So it's important for me as a mayor, but even before that, to understand we have to continually make sure we appreciate our vets. One of the things that I'm most proud of in the city and what we've done for veterans, and not everyone in this room knows that, is in 2015, I was down in the White House. Michelle Obama challenged cities in America to end chronic veterans homelessness. And I'm sitting there and I take the pledge and I'm saying, how are we going to do this? And I came home and I talked to Commissioner Sterling, and we were working with Tommy Lyons and New England Home, and we're thinking, how do we move forward? And Sheila Dillon, Chief of Housing for the City of Boston, we sat in a room and we said, let's just do this. This was April of 2015. And by the end of 2015, in December, actually in January, we got our letter from HUD that told us that we ended chronic veterans homelessness in the City of Boston. And we have a program now in place to make sure that any veteran that comes home and becomes homeless, we have a process and a pathway for them to get into a home. Now, the veterans that are in this room and the active duty members know that oftentimes the person that comes fighting overseas when they come home, they're on the streets for many reasons: alcoholism, drug addiction, PTSD, depression. And we're working to make sure that we do not leave any of your brothers and sisters on the streets of Boston. That's our mission, not to leave them on the streets of Boston. I am proud of what we've done. We've worked to, and here, Brighton Marine has had that mission for a long time. We're working to make sure that our veterans are housed long-term. We're making sure that our veterans are housed permanently. We're making sure that our veterans have the support they need in and around where they're living. Because it's not simply giving somebody a key to an apartment. It's about making sure that they have the services they need. Because the reason why they ended up on the street in the first place is oftentimes because they slipped through the cracks and they didn't have the service they have. So we're working in the city to continue to make our veteran services stronger and make our city stronger so we don't have our veterans out in the street. We have veterans in every neighborhood. We're very sensitive to that as well. We have veterans that are black. We have veterans that are white. We have veterans that are Latino. We have veterans that are Asian. We have young veterans. We have older veterans. We're working to make sure that we let none of our veterans slip through the cracks. Our veterans work in every industry. Our veterans are students in our colleges. Our veterans are business owners in our neighborhoods. Our veterans are the first to show up at a house when it's burning and running into that house while everyone's running out. Our veterans are the first to show up on the streets when there's an incident like we had yesterday in the City of Boston, where we had a 35-year-old person killed, and our veterans were there yesterday to make sure that our streets are safe in Boston. It's important for us as we talk, as we go on later on today, and talk about making sure that our veterans are part of our small ownership. We did an executive order in the City of Boston 2 years ago to make sure that people of color and women have more opportunities to advance contracts in the City of Boston. We also added on to make sure our veterans are part of that. So not only people of color and women, but our veterans are also on a preferred list to make sure that they have opportunities to get business out of the City of Boston as they continue to business. You'll hear more about that in a little while. Operation Thank a Vet, it was mentioned earlier. Operation Thank a Vet, if you have not been part of that, it is an absolute incredible program. And what happens is you go to an area of the City of Boston, You're there with anywhere from 50 to 200 volunteers. Giselle gives you some addresses. You go to people's houses, you knock on their door, and when you go in and sit in their living room, they talk about you thank them for their service to our country. And sometimes the people you knock on their doors, particularly the Vietnam vets, it's the first time still, many, many years later, that somebody thanked them for their service. So it's an incredible, incredible opportunity. I've had 2 or 3 opportunities that I'll never forget in my head when I met people at the front door, talking to them. One was a gentleman in South Boston. He was in Pearl Harbor. And he was talking to me about his service at Pearl Harbor. He was telling me about the days of Pearl Harbor. And I've seen the movie, I've read the books, but I never actually sat next to somebody who told me exactly what was happening that day. And he was able to show me some memorabilia, which I'm not going to talk about today, because I think it was confiscated illegally, and he still has it. I'm going to leave it right there, but you can just imagine what he had. And another gentleman in the Fenway area, African-American gentleman, that was proud of his service, and he talked to me about coming home, and he was the first black pitcher to play in Major League Baseball. He's not a headline, they don't talk about him, his number's not retired in all the ballparks around America, but what he is, he's a person that people understand, appreciate. That's what Operation Thank a Vet does for people. We're doing town halls. Giselle and her team started town halls to have conversations with veterans about what needs to happen and what we need to do better of. I want to thank you. We're working with the African American Veterans Appreciation Brunch last month, something that we do every single year. More and more to come. We're working with our LGBTQ veterans, who we can't forget, and we shouldn't forget. With our women, our Latinos, our Asian veterans, all of our veterans. You know, we're making sure that we're doing what we need to do. I want to thank you. Veterans are united. Regardless of the color of their skin or where they're from, veterans are united. It's something that we have to make sure as we move forward in the city of Boston, we keep that in our head as a department as we move forward. We know that veterans know how to handle adversity and work in teams. We know what your leadership looks like. We know what your bond is. And we also understand the quality of life that you expect when you come home. And that's something that we're going to continue to move forward. We're here today for the veterans because we need you. That's why we're here today. Veterans know this country is not about politics. This country is about people caring enough to put everything on the line, put their life on the line to make sure that we enjoy the freedoms that we have, including myself, Eddie Flynn, to be able to run for office, City Council Mark Siomos here, State Representative Kevin Honan's here. We would not have the opportunity to serve our city, our neighborhoods, if it weren't for the veterans of World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and all of the other wars and conflicts since that point and before that point. So we're here to say thank you. We're here to say thank you for all that you do. We're here to say we're listening to you. We're going to learn from you and truly appreciate the work you do. I just want to simply end by saying thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And God bless all of those veterans that couldn't be with us this morning.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh. I know your time with us is limited. I want to thank you once again, and I know Brighton Marine has a small presentation for you as well.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. We just have a gift from Mayor Walsh. We knew he was running out the door today to say thank you for your leadership in the Veteran Services community and for supporting Brighton Marine and such a terrific city. So congratulations, sir.
Yes. Excellent. So we have a moment where we're going to recognize our Vietnam veterans. As we know, 50 years ago, our country found ourselves fighting in Vietnam. And when the fighting was over, the men and women came back to a world where they didn't know the difference between separating the war from the warrior. So in a recent movement across the nation, Americans are uniting to thank and honor our Vietnam veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. The City of Boston has joined the Vietnam Commemorative partner program and has helped communities publicly and individually thank 2 million Vietnam veterans and their families through 11,000 ceremonies nationwide thus far. So today we pause to honor you and present you with a commemorative lapel pin that was cast and designed as a lasting memento to our nation's gratitude for your service. I only have 2 folks on the list, on the name. I know not everyone wants to be recognized, and I appreciate that. But if I could have the mayor join me real quick. And if I could have Raymond Gagnon, United States Air Force, please join us. Mind if we pin this on your shirt? Thank you so much. And Terrence Melanson, United States Army, please join us. Are there any other Vietnam veterans that would like to be recognized today?
Don't be shy.
Come on up. Thank you. What is your name? Louis Hazelwood. Eric Anthony, United States Marine Corps. Come on up.
The Marines stick together. Stick together.
I'm going to call you up anyway. Tommy Lyons, United States Marine Corps.
Would you like to? You can get him. Oh. It says that you were going to stay.
Mr. Powers, yes, absolutely.
50 years ago was when I came home.
Thank you.
30 years of great service. Best job of my life, serving my country.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? Excellent. Thank you so much. And to our Vietnam veterans, thank you so much for your service. Thank you, Mayor Walsh. So this was touched on a little bit earlier. A century ago, in 1918, Boston Marathon was held as a military relay race, which was unlike any other time because of the wake of World War I. 10-man teams representing various military branches ran from Ashland to Boston, and passing a baton along the way. The relay served as a unifying moment for the country and is the reason that the Boston Marathon can claim to be the oldest consecutive marathon. In commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the relay, the BAA has selected 16 people with ties to the 5 branches to the United States military and the 8 cities and towns of the Boston Marathon course to pass the baton during the 2018 Boston Marathon. My office was able to assist in recruiting the men and women of this team, and today we pause in special recognition of Howard Luckett. In recognition of his dedicated and decades of service to his country and to the communities in which he lived, Howard Luckett will serve as the honorary captain for the Boston Marathon of 2018. So thank you, sir. And I'd like to invite Mr. Luckett up. We have a small token of our appreciation. One of the reasons we started our Veterans Town Hall was to hear the voices of all our veterans. And the person who came up with that idea was a writer by the name of Sebastian Junger. So we're going to present that book that started that trend and really talks about our service and how we are a tribe together. And thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
He's going to be showered with gifts as we get closer to the marathon, so we're giving you more than a book later. But so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to actually break now for breakfast, and when we get back, we'll reconvene and hear some words from our keynote speakers. So please get up, enjoy breakfast, and we'll see you back in 30 minutes.